Alright, contrary to the other tier list, we're going to make a Genshin Impact character tier list. This is essentially going to be based on the individual characters' stories. I know, right? It's not just based on appearance. But first and foremost, I haven't done legitimately every single character's storyline. And at the same time, I also want to admit a lot of these characters may have had their stories happen way earlier on. For instance, Kaya had his mini appearance in the interlude quests, but he mainly had his early stage appearances during like the first sections of the game in Mondstadt. And so what this means is characters like Kaya, characters like Rosaria, who primarily had a lot of their appearances either early on in the game or were limited event exclusive stuff, I don't think they stick as well in people's minds. Like, I know a lot of individuals remember Raiden's, or maybe remember Nahida's, and as a result, you may be more inclined to rate them higher in comparison to someone like Albedo, whose entire storyline was in events. So excluding that and getting that out of the way, I kind of want to first and foremost say that I have biases, like I love certain characters, and I've also read a lot more about other characters, and so as a result, my ratings for these units may be higher than yours in terms of personal story taste. With that being said, I think Albedo, he starts off pretty good. He has great event storylines. I'm not gonna, give him lower points just because his story is entirely limited to events. Don't get me wrong, I hate that, but I do believe that the biggest issue with Albedo is there isn't really enough, like, okay, you have the fact that he's essentially an alchemical creation, cool, but outside of that, his main traits are he's smart, but he's smart in the HoYoverse way, which is, oh, I knew this entire thing was going on all along, as opposed to him showing his smart. So I can't put him in S tier because all we have is that people say he's smart. We don't ever see him do shit with that. Like, and that's the biggest annoying thing, is that you have characters like, let's take in, where is she? Where's our resident pyro bomb lady, Klee. We know he cares about Klee, but we don't really get to see much opportunity for these two characters to be together on screen and bond. Anytime Klee is mentioned, Alice is brought up, and Alice is brought up, it's apparently a big plan that Albedo knew all along and just didn't divulge to anyone. And so his intellect is never shown on screen. And so even though Klee's a good character, she doesn't really help his case. So I can't put him in S tier. I'm gonna say his stories, the quests themselves and the events are really good, but outside of that, him as an individual unit, he has B tier characterization. He's smart, he cares about Klee, but that's it. There is, and that was that light, that little bit of a sign, and there was that slight threat of, oh, I might destroy Mondstadt. But what the fuck did HoYoverse ever do with that? Like, did they forget? Because it hasn't been brought up once. And I do feel like there's a lot of potential here for this character to be really high up, but there's not much else, especially given his creator. But outside of that, it's just meh. And Klee kind of follows suit. I'm kind of removing them off just as I talk about them, but Klee follows suit. She's happy, she's cute, she blows up stuff. That's really it. So C tier for her. I'm gonna say B tier for him just because his character quests are good, but him as an individual unit, not so much. Alhaitham. Alhaitham has had less story impact, or not necessarily less story impact, less story quest lines than somebody like Albedo, but I do think his performance in the main quest was quite nice. His biggest issue is, once again, he falls into the HoYoverse issue of, oh my god, I'm smart, and instead of him individually acting out a system in where he knew everything all along like Albedo, instead you have the system to where he actually makes a plan. So he does perform better in that regard. However, whether or not that works is entirely up to you, so that's subjective. I think his biggest issue is that we don't necessarily see too much in depth into his own personal morality or anything in characterization. And what I want to talk about is, essentially, even though we have these characters with surface level traits, he's smart, he cares about his sister, she's a fun-loving, innocent child, I think some of the better characters we've kind of seen in terms of what they will do, I can say to a lot of individuals it might be Farina. I personally really like Raiden. I think she has kind of one of the, even though her main storyline quest was badly written, she has, and is, I think, to this day, one of the more characters with a lot more complexity and depth in comparison to others. I do think we've had tidbits of Xiao getting there, and him and Yelan had a wonderful quest together in terms of the Chasm quest line. That, I think, is exceptional. Zhongli has kind of had a lot going on with his relationship with the Adepti, and even him and Venti interacting was quite nice. But I do think that characters like Raiden, whether or not you like their character, is entirely different. I think the characterization of that unit is great, though. So, That's what I'm kind of looking at. Like, okay, that's the most in-depth character, and then the worst is Aloy. Aloy, get down to D tier. Okay, but I'll height them. I'm gonna have to rate him as not as bad as Albedo. I'd say Albedo, just because they both have really good quest lines. But in terms of what you kind of can point out about them, it may not be as much. And this is what I kind of want to focus on: the quests you have, and not like minor tidbits of lore you may find in like a book. Because if that's the case, everybody has good quest lines, especially the Archons, because my god, there's a lot of books about them. Ayaka, in performance of main storyline quest, had a good impact, but there wasn't a negative really side to her. She dragged you into her main quest. She dragged you into the Inazuma Archon quest to oppose the Shogun, and regardless, actually, hold up, I'm gonna put the Traveler, all variations of Traveler, down in D tier. The Traveler to this day remains as one of my most hated units. Not necessarily in terms of gameplay. One gameplay that got awful, but in terms of just how they impact the story, I think it kind of messes things up, because you don't know a lot about them to begin with. And early on in the game, you can sit there and I know we're gonna get back to Ayaka, but early on you can sit there and you can say, oh, the Traveler is a character who's new to this world, and you can learn alongside them, and that's fine. But that falls apart towards the end of the Mondstadt arc, when suddenly the Traveler remembers events about Conrir, which you don't really learn about until like a year later. And that kind of messes up your ability to connect with this character. And you don't give a shit about that sibling. I'm being blunt, I don't give a fuck about the sibling. I don't care about the brother, I don't care about the sister. Why? Because the game took the sibling from you in the first 5 minutes. I would care more about Amber or Kaya or anybody else, because I at least had some interactions with them. All I saw was these two fight together, bam, one gets taken away. Oh, now that's my journey for this whole game? No. And we've also seen, in my opinion at least, the Traveler doesn't really have, well, aside from the lack of voice lines, but I won't get on them too heavily for that, because you can love a character even if they don't have that many voice lines. I think that the Traveler's issue is the story will warp characters around them, as opposed to making a character just a character. A prime example is, I think, if we're looking at Venti, Xiao, and Zhongli. These are 3 units that have decent enough relationships with one another. You have Xiao and Zhongli having a very close, tight-knit relationship, because they've kind of worked together for basically 3,000 years. And then Venti and Xiao, Venti saving Xiao at one point. And all of these units have reasons to interact with one another. During the Lantern Rite, every Lantern Rite we've had since, it's kind of been the Xiao event, in that you have Xiao being one of the primary focuses of this event. And the Chasm, I think, worked really well for him. I think that he actually performed great with Yelan, because these two kind of bounced off each other and elaborated a bit more onto their characters, and why they work so well was because neither character felt like they were written in terms of a fan fiction. Every character stayed true to the initial traits we were led to believe about them. Yelan is an individual who takes risks. She's an individual with survivor's guilt. She's an individual who doesn't want other people to die for her. Great. All of those traits were displayed perfectly with somebody like Xiao, who is self-sacrificing, believes his life is already damned, to the extent to where there's no point in risking yours for him. And that trait specifically bounces off Zhongli, who saved his life, and Venti, who saved his life. And the fact that Xiao feels he owes his freedom to Zhongli, and eventually doesn't want to fight anymore. All of these individual traits work well together. So that's why I feel like these 4 units wonderfully bounce off each other. And even Xiao's relationship with Ganyu, an individual who lives an entirely different life than him, because she's able to interact with humanity more often. Cool, great. Then you have the fucking Traveler. I feel like if you wanted to make a Xiao-focused event, you could legitimately do it with any of the Adepti, any of these 2 Archons, and Yelan, or Hu Tao, and that would be fine. But when you throw in the Traveler, you have the game trying to tell you, oh yeah, Xiao hates everybody. He doesn't like interacting with people at all. But the Traveler, yeah, we'll make an exception for you. Oh, the Traveler can insult Zhongli or Venti and blame stuff on them. And Xiao's like, you know what? Hey, that's fine, whatever. It destroys a lot of the, and I'm not gonna lie, the Genshin fandom's kind of done this, mainly Ziox, but it kind of destroys a lot of the characterization that Xiao himself has, and I hate that. So, as much as I can say, and I went off on a tangent on these 4 units, but as much as I can say the Traveler has a lot of potential with their interaction with Conrir, it's kind of messed up just in terms of how much they can warp a character or a story, because we don't really have units who just hate the Traveler. Like, the closest we had was the Puppet Shogun, who really just hated the Traveler, but was also programmed to not like anybody, basically. When I do feel like we could have had better characters if they didn't like the Traveler. Like, not necessarily hated them. We could have still had units who hated them, but they just felt general animosity towards them. And we're like, I don't really give a shit. General indifference would have worked perfectly fine. Rather than having characters like Yai and Raiden, who don't really get along with people, suddenly say, you know what, you're kind of cool, my guy. Like, and you also have the Traveler going to every nation and saying, you know what, I want to get involved in this political issue, even though I don't have to. Even though I don't really have a need to. The Traveler was not necessary in Mondstadt or Liyue. In Mondstadt, we kind of fucked up Venti, who was trying to fix the situation with Dvalin before it got bad. In Liyue, you literally had Zhongli distract you the entire time to not get involved, and then you got involved at the very end. In Inazuma, you were dragged in by Ayaka into a conflict you really had no context for. And yeah, no. I feel like the Traveler's just, I don't like them as a character. But, okay, so, since we kind of glossed over Ayaka, I'm going to put her down in C tier. She doesn't have a lot of depth for a character. I feel like Zhongli, I can throw him up to A tier. I might rearrange this later on, just because these characters are already here. Yelan has a great quest line. I feel like the Genshin fandom's kind of killed her a bit with the whole Dom, mommy attitude type thing. That's dragged her down to A tier. But her interactions with characters like Xiao have stayed consistent. Her interactions with characters during the Lantern Rite, as minimum as they were, have stayed consistent. So I think she's a perfect character. She's a perfectly good character. I do hope we get more of her, but I actually feel like we should have gotten a bit more of her throughout Nations, because we kind of return to Liyue pretty often, and she is a very keen character to gather information in general, so it kind of works, it makes sense. But Xiao, I would put him up here, but I can only put him down here because of how his interactions with the Traveler have not necessarily changed the character, but affected the way the character is viewed. Venti needs a second Archon quest. I do feel like he kind of falls into the same issue as Zhongli, wherein we've seen, where is she? Wherein Raiden, by comparison, has had a lot of good traits and bad traits shown. We've only seen good traits from them, and you can argue whether or not they're good, with Venti being more not necessarily neglectful, but hands-off with Mondstadt to the point where it's affected them pretty greatly. Even though he's the Archon, he doesn't necessarily lay down any hard rules to prevent certain things, like the fact that Mondstadt is the only nation, the nation of freedom, but the only one with a history of slavery, which I always found kind of funny. But, and then you have Zhongli, who, yeah, took a step down from Liyue, but took the step down in a unnecessarily harsh way. I think you can kind of see either perspective with that one, but I don't know. I think we didn't see enough about the way he governed Liyue to really give a solid thought on it. You know, we had much more depth with Raiden's governing of Liyue, or Inazuma, or lack of thereof, with the Tri-Commission, and Venti's hands-off approach. He was kind of the odd one out, but he did display more in regards to Xiao. So I think even though the main quest line didn't evolve too heavily on him in relation as an Archon, his quest with Aishtaha, his quest in Salcherai, and his quests and interactions with Xiao and or Ganyu have worked in his favor. So I'm going to slide Raiden up here. I'm going to slide Venti in A tier next to Xiao. I do hope we get a second quest line, a second story quest with him. It might expand my opinion on him. Zhongli is kind of in between these two because his main quests have involved a lot of history and interactions, but I do feel like the last time we really saw him have a giant impact was maybe either the Lantern Rite or the Chasm, and I kind of want to see how that evolves. But I do think he's a good character. So as of right now, I'll kind of leave him till later because I do have a lot more units who kind of interact with him. But outside of that, this is all fine for now. Ayato, like his sister. Not much. I don't think there's much. Baiju, I feel like it's unfair. It's a bit unfair to rank characters with only one main storyline quest or one main character quest. I hope if they all get two, we kind of even out the board. But as of right now, it's been a year. It's been like 3 years and Venti hasn't gotten his second one. So you know what? I can't hold out hope for that one. Child, he likes to fight. He cares about his siblings. He's kind of friendly with most people, realistically. Like even Zhongli. I feel like he's just a B tier character though. Like he may have more depth, but we haven't seen that. I know there's more depth in terms of what you can read, but I have not seen this displayed on screen, and so I can't give him a higher rating. Sino, same thing. Sino has a very one-check personality to the extent to where he's kind of here-ish. Like, yeah, you might have actually gone you. I'll move you up into B tier, maybe B, or I'll keep you at A for now. Sino, he acts as a judge for Sumeru, and he does kind of change out the main quest line, so I will throw him up to A tier without Hytham. Dea. Dea plays a less important role in that main quest line, which kind of sucks. I feel like, once again, Genshin needs to just have more introductory characters to regions better. Like, maybe Dea travels to fucking Fontaine with you or some shit, just to link the regions together to make everything feel like it's kind of a similar world, because you rarely see characters go from one nation to the other. Yai was like the one exception in Sumeru. But outside of that, I think Dea, ignoring gameplay, has a fine character. I'd say it's better than Albedo. I'd say it's more interesting than Albedo and Alhytham. I feel like HoYoverse sucks at writing smart characters that are interesting as well. You either have to be smart and like super calm, uninterested in most things, pretty boring, or they're not the smartest in the room, but they're kind of funny. And I feel like we kind of hit that rock wall with Albedo and Alhytham, where they're smart, not necessarily super funny or super fun and interesting when they're on screen. I feel like Venti kind of fell into the track where he's a very lighthearted character, but he needs serious moments to balance that out. And maybe that could work if he had a serious companion, but it doesn't. Zhongli ran into that same issue as well, where he's serious, but we don't really have much levity for him. So Dea will sit here at B tier now. I might move over to A tier. I'll see how this list looks at the end. Diluc. The event where we got to try, when his like additional outfit came out, was nice, because you get to see a little bit about his past, which was cool, but it didn't delve into it, which, like, in terms of, you know, voice lines and all that, which sucks. I know in the manga he has better characterization, but once again, I don't want to consider the manga, because it's like, hey, this character's really good. If we just read this external bit of media, watch this, and then read this bit of lore in game. No. C tier. He has a lot of characterization early on, but that's it, and it's kind of sucky. I can't remember a significant moment in which he played a important part in anything. Even the Dark Knight thing, where he was basically Batman, fell off. I feel like you could do a lot with that. Have a commission set at night, and bam, Diluc already solves it for you. Kind of like how you have that commission where Shao kind of finishes things for you. Whatever. Eula. Better characterization than the events. Awful characterization because the vengeance will be mine thing kind of ruins her. It sucks. It makes you just want to not pay attention. It's awful. So I will B tier. Farina, I think the issue with Farina right now is the Genshin community kind of has this thing where if you're a self-sacrificing character in any capacity, they love you. If you are even the slightest bit inconvenienced in favor of helping others or doing something that, you know, you didn't want to do, bam, you're fine. Like, okay, let's look at, hey, actually, not even that. If you can pin the blame on somebody else reasonably as a Genshin character, they will love you. So Farina has been tainted by the Genshin community in my head to be, since they love her so much, I know she's probably, like, long-term not going to hold out the best as a character, at least in terms of what she has, but I do think she's a good character. I think I'm going to slide her into A tier. I may add her up with A later on, but for now, I'll say decent A tier. Hu Tao, a C tier. I honestly can't. I think a lot of people dislike her. They love her design. In terms of character, though, I don't think she's that good. I think her whole prankster attitude does work. I think it falls off later on, though. This is going to be a long video. It's 20 minutes already. Ito. He had some involvement in the Chasm quest and Inazuma and all that, but I feel like we don't get any quiet moments to balance out the loud moments. I'm gonna, full disclosure, I hate him. I hate his loud personality, but I feel like if we got more quiet moments to balance out the loud moments, or maybe more interactions, like the Jump Along event. The Jump Along event wasn't much. It was there. It was an event. It most certainly was, but in terms of a good event, no. My God, there are a lot of characters. Jean, I'm gonna slide her in next to Chloe and Diluc. Not much going on with her. Kazuha, okay. No. I know people love this character. I don't. And okay, so look. First and foremost, in terms of the main questline involved with Inazuma, a lot of individuals are like, hey, you know, Raiden killed his best friend. First off, his best friend that everybody kind of nicknamed Tomo or whatever, didn't fight Raiden. Best friend fought Kujusara. Kujusara won. So technically you should blame Sara. You have his whole questline being like the Vision Hunt decree thing. but for the most part, he wants to, like he claims he doesn't want revenge. I feel like if he just said, yeah, I want revenge, that would be a much more interesting trait than trying to be this holier than that. I don't want revenge. I just want to help people. Fuck off with that. No, I just have a selfish trait. And it's not as though, oh my God, he's a goody two-shoes character and, you know, I hate him for that. No, it's that his selflessness is his whole personality. Like, it's all he is. Selflessness, the wind, poetry, that's it. That's it. And I feel like we need more in general. Like in the event, yeah, he doesn't want to interact with, he doesn't like Raiden, cool. But that's literally fucking it. There wasn't as much depth as there should have been for a character who had that much main involvement before even Inazuma dropped. He was your lead into Inazuma, and his story questline could have been great, but even in the event with Fischl, it didn't evolve on anything related to him. All we had him. We had his little, you know, that little island that represented the tree. You had his family line, and even got the cool little character quest. He has admittedly had some of the better quest lines in the game and gotten so much love and attention you'd think he was Ayaka. But the problem is, just like Ayaka, he's gotten so much love and attention, but nothing has changed about how he's characterized or about how he's written. He's the same as he was originally, and that sucks. That keeps him in C tier, because I don't just want a character who's good all the time. You can be good all the time, but we haven't seen any meaningful development in him as an entity, any meaningful funny interactions. I feel like they could have legitimately just had him interact with Raiden. Whether or not they got along was a totally different experience, but we never got that. One of the bigger interactions people waited for ages was Venti and Zhongli, or Venti and Xiao, or Xiao and Zhongli. And we had interactions like Raiden and Miko, or characters who don't get along. Kazuha and Raiden should have interacted, and they never have. And it sucks, because it kills off a lot of potential there. So no, I can't rank him any higher, because he's kind of a shit character. Kaching. She's had decent characterization in terms of events. She's a workaholic, but it's the same personality trait as Jean. Kokomi, I hate her voice, but same personality trait as Jean and Kaching. Workaholic, bam, that's it. Lenny, he likes his sister. He cares about her. Cares about his brother. That's it. I love this. I love his design. I love him as a character, but he's B tier. Mona, the event helped her. I think I would have put her here, but the event raised her up to a B tier character. Nahida, down here at C tier. I'm not gonna put her in D tier. D tier is for like this dog shit character with no traits. She has traits, but her only trait is the same as Kazuha, and that's being selfless and good, and that's all. Like, she's innocent except for when she's not. She's kind of learning about the world except for when she knows everything about the world. She's a goody two-shoes character, except for when she does shit that doesn't really align with that mentality, like reading the minds of all her people. Yeah, no, I can't put her any higher. Neuvillette is basically Fontaine Zhongli. Both of them have a lot of lore surrounding them, and I love it. Gameplay, I don't like his, but I feel like there's a lot of interesting potential here in general to be evolved on later, so I'm going to put him next to Furina. Nilo. Honestly, C tier. She doesn't have much of a character. Here's my thing. Genshin has a lot of good characters. Kazuha, Kokomi, Nahida, Nilou. I feel like if we're talking about just those characters alone, Kokomi has the most depth out of those four, because she does very criminal actions and gets away with it. Watatsumi Island, unsealed Orobashi, the giant snake god, and that's what caused the thunderstorms on it. That wasn't Raiden. Raiden's wards kept the thunderstorms away from the remnant remains of that god, and they unsealed it, and then bam, people died, and no one ever takes it to court for that. No one ever says, hey, people kind of fucked up with this. That's it. And she has the same smart personality as Albedo. Oh, I'm such a great tactician. What did you do? What did you do? Was your strategy to wait for somebody else to handle your problem for you? Because that's what the Traveler did. Traveler just came in, handled the issue, and she was like, yeah, you know, it's my strategy all along, you know. Rope you in this conflict, get you to fight. What the fuck? Can someone explain to me why she's a good character? Okay. Chi-Chi. She doesn't have much. And the memory loss doesn't help with that. Shenhe, she got, okay, initially bad. I would put her down in D tier, but I'd say C tier now. She got some interactions with Ganyu, and she's trying to slowly integrate with humanity. So her interactions with Ganyu and Nelan work a little bit in her favor, not much though. She needs more. Tighnari. Main storyline quest, I'd say great. Character, great. Sass, wonderful. Voice acting, awful now. I love the original VA. Elliot was a much better Tighnari. So I'll put him in B, but not much better. Scara. No. Scara. I can rant for this character for ages, but this is already a long video, so I won't try to. But Scara has, I believe, one of the worst forms of characterization in the main storyline, and I can't even rant too heavily about it because we never get any resolution for it. Him using this spoilers, but what the fuck did you expect at this point? Him using the Urban Soul Tree to wipe himself away from Teyvat's memory fucked up so many possible interactions he could have had with A, with Miko, with anyone in Inazuma, that it kills the interest for me. What the fuck was the point of that? Like, why say, like, I understand, okay, from a business perspective, you could say, oh my god, he's committed so many actions, so many horrible actions. We can't make him a character that suddenly gets along with everybody. So what if he erases himself from existence entirely? But the thing is, that falls apart in every sense, because now he's just this nameless person who committed horrible atrocities, doesn't do anything to resolve that or work towards forgiveness, gets away with it because Nahida is such a good character. She's like, oh my god, I will help you arbitrarily with this issue somewhat, kind of, sort of, accidentally, because even though I have all knowledge, I'm kind of a dumbass and will just let you into extremely important areas without the ability to stop you easily. Okay, whatever. He's an awful character. Awful character. I will rank him lower than Aloy, actually. I will rank him on the same tier as Aloy just because now he is not a character anymore. The interesting facets of him and what he could have had to deal with are gone entirely. Wisely, I can't rate you because I don't know much about him. So I won't rate him too high or too low. Miko kind of okay, her actual story quest was wonderful. I loved it because it took Miko as a character. Like, yeah, she had her minor involvements with Raiden and all that, great, cool. I feel like her character questline though helped out a lot because it took what could have just been her being the smug know-it-all that I think a lot of people expected it to be, and it gave us some fun interactions with the other not long since removed yokai. It gave us some nice interactions with the characters in the world itself, and we could see it kind of do a job for a bit. And it did add, once again, something I think that is sorely missing: remorse and lost. And I think Inazuma's whole thing as a whole was lost. Everybody lost somebody, and the individuals who came out higher for it at the end were the individuals who actually got to express that loss. She missed her friends, the individuals she would never got to see again, and that was nice. Raiden had that same thing. You didn't really see that with Kazuha or Kokumi, characters who didn't really get a chance to display any of that grief on screen. And I think that's why I'd say Miko's higher, because yeah, the events helped out, but outside of that, you know, Yoimiya, okay, admittedly she falls into the same traits as Nilo. She has a happy-go-lucky personality, which I think kind of it works against her, because HoYoverse can't make you happy with a lot of depth too often. Venti is literally happy, but that's it. Actually, no, I'm gonna put him in B tier now, just because I'm trying to think more. He's happy, but that's really, you can say there's more depth that isn't displayed on screen, but that's the issue. It's not fucking displayed. And I can't rate him higher on hypotheticals and lore when realistically I have to rate him higher on what the average player could learn just from playing the game. And so Mia falls into that same instance here. Okay, Zhongli, finally got to you, my guy. My favorite character in the game. Okay, so he has the interactions with Zhao, Ganyu, Venti, and even Hu Tao. His relationship with Hu Tao is really cute. I think a lot of people like that. His relationship with the Adepti is nice. I do think his issue with Zhao is that he can't interact with him because Zhao kind of views him as his boss, so he tries to get the Traveler to do stuff for him, which I think was the best utilization of the Traveler we've had. That was it though. With Zhongli, he has that same calm personality as Albedo and Ahaita. But if we're going more than that, he does have more interactions where, even though he's not necessarily the main entity on screen, he at least displays some different forms of either affection or care. With Zhao, when he almost died in a chasm, Zhongli saved him, which was the first little bit we saw of Zhongli using his power. During the Age to Her questline, you actually saw some grief, and even though it was a short meeting, he did interact with one of his friends, so that rate him higher to A tier. With Sakurai, you got the interactions he had talking about the Archon War, which, as of yet, he's one of the few characters that let you delve deep into that. which I liked a lot. I think that was a great display of his first character quest line. And the Lantern Ride, you get to see him interact with the Adepti, which is really sweet because they are all friends, even though he's still called Rex Lapis. I do think, once similar to A, who kind of outright says it, there's a lot more that's going to be happening with him later on, especially in regards to Nouvelettes. But I will put him here. I think Nouvelette's probably going to end up here as well. Amber, down here as well. Barbara, down here as well. Beto, interesting character. Not that much in terms of actual characterization. Bennett, same thing. Unlucky Adventurer. Kandake or Candace, I'm just going to say Candace. Not that much. Charlotte, same thing. Chongyun. Chongyun's negative and positive yang could be nice, but that's a no. Kale, interesting backstory. Could raise her up here, but it's not displayed in games, which is down here. Same thing with Diona. Dory barely had any involvement. Farazan. Official, her event stuff was up here. So I will put her up here just because she has more characterization than all of these characters down here. Fremi here. Goro. His interaction with Yai, I fucking loved him. They're literally one of my favorite things in the game. Outside of that though, he's down here. So I will put him in C tier. Hazel, same thing. Kaya, no. You could have had much more, but you're kind of just meh now. Kave, no. You had that one event. Kirara, you had your interaction with Remiya, which do raise you to C tier. Kuki, during her first appearance with Yanfei and Yelan and Ito, I'll say up here with B tier. Layla, no. Lisa, no. She could have been your introduction to Sumeru. She literally studied there. Why wasn't she? Lynette, not as impactful as your brother, because you don't have that big main quest, but whatever. You're fine, even though you're featured in. Mika, no. Ning, I see, I'm tempted. Ningguang could have been up here, but she is so underutilized, and it just, it makes me sad, because she could have been so much better, so she's a C tier now. D tier, Noelle, Razor, you had your, he was the only character, only 4-star, who actually had a relationship with one of the, main, not necessarily antagonists, but weekly bosses. You had Zhongli with Asia, Raiden with Raiden. You had Signora being a separate entity and Child existing as a boss. But Venti, the main questline introduced you to Dvalin, but realistically, he was the only character who just had a casual relationship with the weekly boss, which is like, hey, I'll spar with you. And that was it. Rosaria, no. No. Sarah, your interactions during the, what's it called? Iodori Festival, where you had the statue of the almighty Narukami Ogosho God of Thunder, was wonderful, super cute. I like it. That was it though. Sayu, Sleepy, Sucrose, no. Toma, no. Zhengling, you know what, Zhengling? I'll throw you in B tier. You like to cook, but you like your interaction with the Gorba, C tier actually. Never mind. Shincho, same thing with Chongyun. You guys are kind of fitting for both seats together. Jinyan, you had more depth during the event, but not much else outside of that. And you got Hu Tao to rap, which was, you could have not done that, my guy. You could have stopped that before it became an issue. Yanfei, Kuki, B tier. Yo, too innocent, sweet, and Yunjin, same deal. Okay, here's the characterization. This is my Genshin tier list. I think Nouvelettes and Farina are probably gonna end up here. But as for right now, this is my solid opinions. I've read a lot about these two individuals, and I feel like it works. Xiao's dragged down because of the Traveler. Yai, I think getting a second quest would fix her up real good. Yelan, good, wonderful. Ganyu, I feel like could use a bit more interaction with her boss, because I feel like it's kind of stupid she didn't recognize Rex Lapis despite serving under him for like the past 3,000 years, but whatever. Okay, that's it. Tell me your thoughts and where you'd rank everybody down below. Subscribe, because this has been a long time. It is 36 minutes in terms of recording length. I'm going to cut it down a little bit, but good luck.